So if you go back to January of 2012, there was this image of a moth-like insect that just suddenly appeared on anonymous message boards all over the internet.
Right. Yeah, the legendary cicada image.
Exactly. And it was super simple, right? Just this stark white text on a black background. And it basically said, hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals.
Which is such a wild way to start anything online.
Oh, totally. I mean, it went on to say, to find them, we have devised a test. There's a hidden message in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to finding us. And it was just signed, 3301.
And I mean, people initially just thought it was like an interactive marketing campaign.
Yeah, like for a video game or a movie or something.
Right, just a fun scavenger hunt. But it rapidly escalated into something far more profound than that.
It really did.
I mean, it became Cicada 3301, which is widely considered the most enigmatic, sprawling, cryptographic labyrinth in the entire history of the digital age.
Without a doubt.
Because it wasn't just solving a little riddle, it required solvers to decipher ancient languages, physically travel to GPS coordinates in multiple different countries, and interact with computer code that literally ate and mutated itself.
Which is just, it's mind-blowing. And for years, people have debated who was actually behind it.
Oh yeah, the theories are everywhere.
Right, like was it a rogue intelligence agency? A shadowy tech syndicate? But today we're taking a deep dive into the source material that suggests a totally different kind of blueprint.
A fascinating blueprint, really.
Yeah, because we're looking at these staggering thematic and mathematical overlap between the Cicada 3301 puzzle and the lifetime work of Pulitzer Prize-winning cognitive scientist Douglas R Hofstadter.
And the parallels here, they aren't just superficial, like they run deep.
They really do.
Hofstadter's explorations of, cognitive science, strange lieu, self-referential mathematics, and how meaning actually emerges out of chaos, it all serves as a literal structural blueprint for the architecture of Cicada.
So it's not just a passing resemblance.
No, not at all. By decoding Hofstadter's work, ranging from Gödel numbering and musical cryptography to psychological number games and Zen koans, we can actually reverse engineer the logic of the puzzle itself.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore today for you listening. We're going to see how moving from lower-level physical rules to higher-level cognitive meaning is like the master key to unlocking both Hofstadter's philosophy and Cicada itself.
It's a huge journey.
It is. But to do that, we really have to start at the absolute beginning of any puzzle. Because before you can decipher a hidden message, you have to realize that you're even looking at a message in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. You have to know you're being invited to play.
Right.
And that initial realization is really the foundation of Hofstadter's work, particularly his sequence project.
Sequence, right.
Yeah, he argued that pure intelligence isn't about, raw computational horsepower.
Because a calculator isn't intelligent.
Right. Exactly. A calculator is just executing functions. True intelligence is rooted in pattern perception, extrapolation, and generalization.
So it's about seeing the big picture.
Right. It's the ability to look at a seemingly random set of data, perceive a hidden structure within it, and recognize the underlying rule that actually governs that structure.
Which, that begs a really practical question. If you're a puzzle designer, how do you signal to a solver that a pattern is actually there?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because if I just hand you a page of totally random letters, you're probably just going to throw it in the trash.
Yeah, you just think it was garbage.
So how do you construct the bait so that a human mind locks onto it, but at the same time dismisses pure static?
Well, to solve that, Hofstadter borrows this brilliant concept from the physicist Erwin Schrödinger.
Oh, the cat guy.
Yes, the cat guy. But specifically from his 1944 book, What is Life? See, Schrödinger was trying to figure out how biological life stores complex genetic information while simultaneously resisting the chaos of thermodynamic entropy.
Which is a heavy topic for 1944.
It really was. And he proposed the existence of what he called periodic crystals.
Periodic crystals. Okay, let's break that down, because it sounds like we're crossing, quantum mechanics with geology. Let's just start with a regular crystal.
Sure, yeah. Think of a grain of salt or a diamond.
Okay, got it.
At a molecular level, a regular crystal has a perfectly repeating, highly ordered geometric structure. It's periodic.
Right, so the pattern is just like ABC, ABC forever.
Exactly. It's beautiful and it's highly organized, but from an information standpoint, it's virtually useless.
Because it's so predictable.
Right. It doesn't carry complex data because it just repeats the exact same simple phrase into infinity.
It's like a wallpaper pattern. I mean, it's nice to look at, but you aren't going to read a novel off it.
That's a perfect analogy. And on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have total chaos,
Like what?
like a cloud of gas. The molecules are just bouncing around completely at random. There's zero structure, which means, again, there's zero information.
Okay, so you have endless repetition on one side and total chaos on the other.
Exactly. And in a periodic crystal sits perfectly in the narrow band right between those two extremes.
Ah, I see.
It's highly structured, holding its shape firmly, but it does not repeat in a predictable way.
Okay, so DNA would be like the ultimate biological example of this, right?
Precisely. DNA holds its physical structure, but the base pairs sequence contains massive amounts of non-repeating data. Or, to use a more human example, just think of a physical book.
A book.
Yeah, a book is a highly structured object filled with symbols, letters, that are arranged in a deeply complex, non-random sequence.
Right, the letters don't just repeat perfectly, but they also aren't random gibberish.
Exactly. And when a conscious mind encounters a highly structured, non-random package resting inside a regular geometric form, it acts as what Hofstadter calls a frame message.
A frame message. So wait, a frame message isn't the secret itself, it's more like the structural neon sign pointing out that a secret exists.
That's it, exactly. It is the mathematical equivalent of someone clearing their throat before they speak.
Oh, I like that.
It tells the observer, something funny is going on here. Pay attention.
I can see exactly how this applies to Cicada 3D301.
Right.
Because the bait they cast in 2012 was that image of the cicada. To the casual scroller, it's just a creepy picture on a message board.
Just noise.
Right. But to a pattern-sensitive mind, it functioned as an undesirable frame message. Because the pixels of the image acted like the regular crystal, but embedded within the digital file in the metadata, using that technique called steganography, were anomalous, highly structured text strings that just had no business being there.
Exactly. The creators relied on what Hofstadter terms aesthetic pressures.
Aesthetic pressures, what does that mean in this context?
It means things like simplicity, consistency, symmetry, and elegance. When a highly intelligent individual looked at the code behind that image, they didn't need to perform brute force mathematics to know something was hidden.
They just felt it.
Right. The symmetry of the anomalous data exerted an aesthetic pressure that forced the mind into a perceptual regrouping.
It's like walking through a really loud, crowded party. You're surrounded by acoustic chaos, just absolute noise. But if someone across the room starts tapping the distinct rhythm of your favorite song on a glass, your brain snaps.
Yes.
It instantly regroups that specific acoustic data from background noise to signal. You just lock onto it.
That snap of recognition perfectly illustrates Hofstadter's distinction between the two fundamental levels of reality.
Which are?
On the bottom, you have the inviolate lower level.
Inviolate lower level.
Right. This is the meaningless substrate, the hardware. In a computer, it's just silicon pathways and binary electrical pulses.
And in a human brain, it's just neurons, synapses, and chemistry.
Exactly. At this inviolate lower level, there is no meaning, no intention, no puzzle. It is just microscopic physical rules obeying the laws of thermodynamics.
Just billiard balls bouncing off each other in the dark.
Yes. But floating above that physical substrate is the tangled higher level.
The tangled higher level.
This is the realm of software of the mind, of what Hofstadter calls active symbols.
Active symbols.
See, meaning is not built into the hardware of the universe. Meaning only emerges when a conscious system, a mind, recognizes a pattern at the lower level and assigns an interpretation to it at the higher level.
Okay, wow. That makes perfect sense of the cicada selection process.
Doesn't it?
Because they weren't looking for someone who just had a massive server farm to crunch data. They were filtering for minds capable of operating at that tangled higher level. Minds that could perceive a frame message hidden in the meaningless substrate of a JPEG file.
But the frame message was just the gateway.
Right, because once a solver recognized that a message actually existed, they had to figure out how the actual data was concealed.
Exactly. They had to transition from pattern recognition to the rigorous mathematics of encryption.
And Hofstadter's work provides a literal operational toolbox for how to do this, right? Centered primarily around the concept of isomorphism.
Isomorphism, yes.
Let's break down the Greek roots there, just
Yeah.
for clarity. Iso meaning equal and morph meaning shape. So equal shape.
Or equal structure.
Equal structure.
Yeah, in mathematics and cognitive science, isomorphism occurs when you can establish a direct structural mapping between two entirely different systems.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Well, the materials might be different, but the internal logic is identical. So if you map digital pixels on a screen to letters of the alphabet, or musical notes on a staff to cryptographic keys, you are relying on isomorphism.
Ah, I get it. So if I study the structural rules of domain A and I discover the mapping key, I can instantly read domain B without having to learn a completely new language.
Exactly. And the most profound application of this concept in history, which forms the backbone of Hofstadter's Pulitzer-winning book, Gödel, Escher, Bach, is Gödel numbering.
Kurt Gödel, the logician who essentially shattered the foundations of mathematics in 1931 with his incompleteness theorems.
He did. He really did.
So how does Gödel numbering work?
Well, to prove that mathematics was capable of talking about its own flaws, Gödel needed a way to turn abstract mathematical statements into physical numbers.
He needed mathematics to inspect itself.
Right. So he invented a typographic mapping system.
Okay.
He created a dictionary that assigned a unique integer to every possible mathematical symbol. An equals sign gets a specific number. A plus sign gets a number. A parenthesis gets a number.
Okay, so if I map out an entire equation, let's say 1 + 1 = 2, I just replace each symbol with its corresponding number from Gödel's dictionary.
That's the first step. Yeah.
But wait, that presents an immediate logistical problem, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
If I translate my symbols into the numbers 4, 7, and 2, and I just write them next to each other as 472, how does the person reading it know it wasn't the number 47 and the number 2? The boundaries between the symbols are just lost.
Ah, you've hit on the exact problem. And this is where Gödel deployed an incredibly elegant piece of number theory that puzzle creators like Cicada absolutely rely on.
Which is,
Prime factorization.
prime numbers. Numbers divisible only by 1 and themselves. The eternal obsession of every cryptographer, right?
Yeah.
2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, and so on.
They are the indivisible atoms of mathematics.
Okay, so how did he use them?
Gödel realized he could use primes as the structural scaffolding to hold his code together.
Scaffolding.
Yeah. Here's how the mechanism works. You take the sequence of prime numbers in their natural order, 2, 3, 5, and so on.
Okay.
Now, take your string of mapped code numbers. Let's say your code numbers are A, B, and C.
Following the logic, do I apply my code numbers as the exponents to the primes?
Exactly that. You raise the first prime, 2, to the power of your first code number, A.
Oh.
You raise the second prime, 3, to the power of your second code number, B, and 5 to the power of C. So you get an equation that looks like 2 to the A times 3 to the B times 5 to the C. Then I just multiply all of that out.
Right.
So if my code numbers are 2, 1, and 3, I'm doing 2 squared times 3 to the first power times 5 cubed. I multiply that all together, and I get one single massive integer.
And because of the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, every integer greater than 1 has one and only one unique prime factorization.
It's a mathematical fingerprint.
Precisely. No matter how gargantuan that final number gets, I mean, even if it's thousands of digits long, a mathematician can factorize it back down.
And they'll always pull out the exact same prime bases.
Always. And more importantly, they will recover the exact same exponents, A, B, and C.
That is brilliant. So the exponents act as the hidden message, preserved perfectly inside the structure of the giant number. Yes, the giant number itself has what Hofstadter refers to as a double aboutness.
Double aboutness. I like that.
On its surface, it's just a regular integer sitting on a number line, obeying regular arithmetic. But structurally, through isomorphism, it contains an entire sentence of metadata about the system itself.
And this technique is just a perfect vehicle for hiding data in plain sight.
Oh, absolutely. And we see this mirrored directly in the numbers most closely associated with the Cicada mystery.
Right, because the group's name itself features the number 3801.
Yes. And throughout the puzzle's iterations, solvers repeatedly encountered the number 30103. Both of these are, unsurprisingly, prime numbers.
Which acts as a massive frame message for anyone mathematically inclined. It's that throat clearing again.
Exactly. So let's apply Hofstadter's specific cryptographic framework to these numbers.
Let's do it.
In Gödel, Escher, Bach, he constructs a simplified formal system called the MIU system to teach these concepts.
MIU, okay.
It uses only 3 typographical symbols, M, I, and U. And Hofstadter provides a basic Gödel numbering dictionary for this system.
Okay, what's the mapping?
The symbol M is mapped to the integer 3, the symbol I is mapped to 1, and the symbol U is mapped to 0.
Wait, hold on. I can see the geometry aligning here.
Can you?
Yeah. If we take the primary Cicada prime, 3301, and we run it through Hofstadter's exact MIU dictionary.
The first 3 translates to M.
Right.
The second 3 translates to M. The 0 translates to U, and the 1 translates to I.
So the number 3301 maps directly to the string MMUI.
Exactly.
That's incredibly specific. What happens if we run their secondary prime, 30103, through the same dictionary?
Well, the 3 becomes M, the 0 becomes U, the 1 becomes I, followed by another U and another M.
MUIU?
The translation yields MUIU.
Look at the structure of that string. It is a perfect typographical palindrome. It reads the exact same forwards and backwards.
Which brings us right back to the concept of aesthetic pressure, doesn't it?
Oh, man, yeah. Because the human mind sees the symmetry of MU, IUM, and the sheer mathematical improbability of it occurring by chance, and it just instantly recognizes that an intelligent designer is at work.
You can't ignore it.
But I have to interject here, though, because if we're just talking about prime factorization and matching integers to typographical dictionaries, why couldn't a solver just point a supercomputer at this?
That's a very good question.
Right, because we have algorithms that factorize massive primes for SSL encryptions every second of the day. Why did Cicada need human solvers? Why didn't someone just unleash a botnet to brute force the entire labyrinth in, like, 5 minutes?
The distinction you're pointing out is the exact core of Hofstadter's philosophy.
Okay.
And it's the defining mechanism of the puzzle. A computer program can absolutely factorize the numbers instantly. It can spit out the exponents faster than a human could blink.
Right.
But that is entirely blind execution. A machine is trapped at the inviolate lower level. It does not possess the capacity to recognize the isomorphism.
Meaning the bot has the numbers, but it has no earthly idea what dictionary it's supposed to apply those numbers to.
Exactly. The computer doesn't know if the number 3 is supposed to represent the letter M, or the color red, or a musical note in a Bach fugue, or a longitudinal coordinate in Warsaw.
It's just a 3 to the computer.
Right. Only a human mind, capable of perceiving context, analogy, and aesthetic elegance, can look at the mathematical output, look at the surrounding contextual clues, and intuitively recognize the structural mapping required to translate those numbers into actual meaning.
So the puzzle is actively filtering out machines. It's demanding a leap of analogical insight that silicon simply cannot perform.
Yes, and that reality introduces a massive challenge for the puzzle designer.
How so?
Well, if brute force computing is the enemy of the puzzle, how do you actively punish people who try to cheat with algorithms?
Oh, right. Because people will definitely try to cheat.
They always do. So you have to design systems that lure bots into dead ends while simultaneously rewarding human intuition.
Okay, so how do you do that?
This leads us directly to Hofstadter's game designs.
Game designs?
Yeah, he designed these games that deliberately pit human psychology against soulless game theory mathematics.
This is fascinating. So Hofstadter actually built games to prove this point.
He did. We can look at a game he invented in 1962 called Undercut.
Undercut. How does it work?
The rules are deceptively simple. 2 players each secretly choose a number between 1 and 5. You reveal your numbers simultaneously.
Okay.
If the numbers are not adjacent, for example, you pick 2 and I pick 5, we both simply score our own number. You get 2 points, I get 5 points.
That sounds simple enough, but what happens if we pick numbers that are right next to each other? Say I pick 4 and you pick 5.
If the numbers differ by exactly 1, the lower number undercuts the higher number.
Oh.
Because you picked 4, you undercut my 5. You steal my value.
So I score my 4 plus your 5.
Yes. You score 9 points for the round, and I score 0.
Oh, wow. That completely changes the dynamic.
It does, right?
It's a game of psychological chicken. I'm constantly trying to model your mental state, guessing what you're going to play so I can play exactly 1 number lower.
Exactly.
But if I get too paranoid and play a 1, and you just play a 5, you take your 5 points, and I'm stuck with 1.
Right. It is entirely based on out-psyching your opponent. The soul of the game is human intuition.
That sounds super fun, honestly.
It is. However, a student named John Peterson analyzed Undercut and applied pure mathematical game theory to it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He mapped out a comprehensive zero-sum payoff matrix and calculated the mathematically optimal strategy.
I have a feeling the optimal mathematical strategy ruins the psychological fun.
It completely destroys it. It strips the game of its humanity entirely. Peterson's math determined that to play optimally, you should completely ignore your opponent's psychology.
Ignore them completely.
Completely. Instead, you should roll a 66-sided die that is weighted with highly specific probabilities for picking the numbers 1 through 5 and blindly play whatever the die dictates.
Wow. So it turns a tense psychological duel into a random number generator.
Right. The computer plays the odds, not the opponent.
That's depressing.
Hofstadter thought so too. He hated this because the math bypassed the human element. So, to break the math, he invented a variation called underwhelm, sometimes referred to as overcut.
Underwhelm. What did he change?
In this version, the players use an infinite number line.
Infinite. Wow.
You can pick any positive integer in the universe, and if the numbers differ by 1, the higher number overcuts the lower one.
Oh, I see. The infinite number line shatters the probability matrix.
Exactly.
You can't program a computer to calculate optimal odds on an infinite set of choices.
You really can't. And it introduces a deeply human psychological phenomenon that Hofstadter calls the trap of the plateau.
Trap of the plateau. Explain that.
Imagine you and I are playing Underwhelm. I decide to start playing the number 81, and I just keep playing it, round after round. 81, 81, 81.
Well, as a human player, I'm going to immediately notice that pattern.
Right.
I'm going to think he's stuck in a loop. I'm going to play 82, overcut his 81, and rack up a massive score.
But the moment I sense you're about to take the bait and jump to 82, I suddenly drop my number to 30.
Oh, that's sneaky.
You play your 82, trying to spring the trap, and I play 30. Because we aren't adjacent, we score our own numbers. I score 30 and you score 82.
But now I'm stuck.
Exactly. You are stranded way up in the high numbers, and I have successfully manipulated you into a position where I can start building a completely new trap.
That kind of bluffing requires an intuitive understanding of when a pattern is genuine and when a pattern is just bait.
Yes.
He also designed the game to eliminate ties entirely, right? Mediocrity.
Mediocrity is a brilliant three-player game. To ensure a tie is mathematically impossible, Hofstadter used staggered ranges.
How does that work?
Player A must pick a whole integer, say from 1 to 5. Player B cannot pick whole numbers. They must pick an integer plus 1/3, like 1.3 or 4.33.
And player C.
Player C picks an integer plus 2/3. Because the domains never intersect, the math guarantees a definitive outcome while still preserving the psychological tension.
If I'm building a labyrinth like Cicada 3301, I am absolutely integrating these concepts to defend my puzzle from botnets.
Oh, without question.
I'm going to set up incredibly obvious mathematical patterns as bait.
And if a solver tries to automate the solution using a script acting like John Peterson's soulless game theory matrix, the script just follows the obvious pattern right off a cliff.
Because the computer will just keep playing 82 forever.
Precisely. The puzzle demands the human intuition of knowing when to break the rule.
Do we have a concrete mathematical example from Hofstadter's work of how a computer script catastrophically fails at a human pattern?
We have a spectacular one, actually, documented in his book, Fluid Concepts.
Okay, let's hear it.
He analyzes a scenario he calls the disastrous sequence of first differences.
The disastrous sequence.
Hofstadter creates a number sequence by weaving together three incredibly simple elementary mathematical families. He takes the prime numbers, the multiples of 10, and the natural numbers.
Okay, so thread 1 is the primes.
Yeah.
2, 3, 5, 7.
Right.
Thread 2 is the multiples. 10, 20, 30.
Yeah.
And thread 3 is the naturals. 0, 1, 2.
Correct. He weaves them together sequentially. The sequence begins. 2, which is the first prime, then 10, the first multiple, then 0, the first natural.
Wait.
Then it continues. 3, 21, then 5, 32. The full sequence reads 2, 10, 0, 3, 20, 1, 5, 32, 7, 43.
Okay, I see it. And if a human being just stares at that sequence for 30 seconds, the brain's perceptual regrouping kicks in.
It does.
You can visually untangle the three distinct threads. The aesthetic pressure forces you to see the underlying simplicity.
But if you feed this exact sequence to a standard pattern-finding computer algorithm, the algorithm doesn't look at it aesthetically, it attacks it mathematically.
Right, because it's a computer.
The first thing an algorithm does is take the first differences, meaning it subtracts each number from the one next to it to calculate the gap, searching for a steady slope.
But because the sequence is interwoven, subtracting the adjacent numbers is going to produce absolute garbage.
It creates a disastrously chaotic output.
What does it look like?
Applying mathematical first differences yields the gaps. 8, negative 10, 3, 17, negative 19, 4, 25, negative 28.
Yikes.
To a computer, the sequence appears to be highly volatile, unpredictable noise. It destroys the pattern by trying to overmath it.
The bot literally blinds itself.
It does. And here is an incredible cryptographic Easter egg for this specific deep dive.
Oh, I love Easter eggs. What is it?
Hidden perfectly inside that chaotic wreckage of automated math are the exact numbers 33 and -10.
Wait, 33 on 1.
The math is undeniable. The second gap in the sequence, subtracting 10 from 0, is exactly -10.
Okay.
And further down the sequence, the 10th gap, subtracting 7 from 40, is exactly 33.
That is wild. The automation obscures the elegance, generates chaos, and completely misses the human-readable threads.
It misses it entirely.
Well, if a brute force script fails that spectacularly on a simple number sequence, it's going to be absolutely useless when applied to physical spatial algorithms.
So, entirely useless.
Which brings us to Hofstadter's deep fascination with the geometry of chaos in cubology.
Cubology is fascinating. It's the formal study of the Rubik's Cube and its many multidimensional cousins.
Right.
Hofstadter saw these not just as children's toys, but as physical computers.
Physical computers.
Yeah, they are tangible models for understanding how algorithms organize chaos.
I mean, a standard Rubik's Cube is hard enough for most people, but Hofstadter focused on geometries that almost impossible to visualize, didn't he? Like Wolfgang Kupper's Incredible.
The Incredible is a terrifying piece of spatial engineering.
Describe it for us.
It is Exactly. You discover that if you perform a specific sequence of 5 twists, it flips 2 pieces on the other side of the sphere without destroying the progress you've already made. Hofstadter even gave his macros specific names, like the corkscrew and the anticorkscrew.
That's exactly how speed cubers operate today. The moves just become compiled code. It transitions from conscious mathematical calculation into pure muscle memory.
Right.
Your fingers just execute the corkscrew subroutine while your brain looks for the next pattern.
Human solving relies heavily on these recognizable chunks. But Hofstadter contrasts this with what mathematicians refer to as God's algorithm.
God's algorithm. That sounds ominous.
It's the absolute theoretical shortest path to solve the puzzle from any scrambled state.
Okay, so what's the difference between human solving and God's algorithm?
The defining characteristic of God's algorithm is that it is almost always algorithmically complex, irreducible, and mathematically random.
Explain what you mean by mathematically random in this context.
It means the shortest path contains no repeating patterns. There are no human-readable subroutines, no corkscrews.
So you can't memorize it.
You cannot compress God's algorithm into a simple, easy-to-memorize rule. If you watched a computer execute God's algorithm on a Rubik's Cube, it wouldn't look like someone solving a puzzle.
What would it look like?
It would look like completely erratic, random, twisting, pure noise until, miraculously, the puzzle snaps perfectly into a solved state on the final term.
That paints such a vivid picture. It's like staring at the static on an old CRT television set. It's just chaotic snow. But if you know the exact mathematical angle to look at it from, all that static locks together to form a perfectly clear three-dimensional image of a maze.
That visual analogy maps perfectly onto how Hofstadter utilizes chaotic sequences, specifically mathematical constructs like the Q sequence in diagram G.
Let's explore those mechanics. What is the Q sequence?
Well, most people are familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the sum of the 2 preceding ones.
Right, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8.
Exactly. It's predictable and orderly. The Q sequence is recursively defined, meaning it relies on its own previous terms, but it generates values that seem to bounce around the number line completely at random.
So it looks like pure static.
It does. And diagram G is a similar concept, generating an infinite, recursively branching tree structure that appears highly chaotic on the surface.
So if I am the architect of Cicada 3301, how do I weaponize this chaos? Because I don't want my puzzle to just be unsolvable noise. I want there to be an answer hidden inside it.
To understand how to hide data in chaos, we have to look at Hofstadter's exploration of iterated functions and the logistic map.
Okay.
I want you to imagine a mathematical equation, but it has a physical parameter attached to it, like a volume knob you can turn with your hand.
Okay, I have my hand on the mathematical knob.
At low settings, the equation is stable. You run it, and it outputs a single solid number, let's say 2. But as you slowly turn the knob up, increasing the energy in the system, the output suddenly splits. It begins bouncing back and forth between 2 different numbers, 2, then 4, then 2, then 4.
Okay, this is called period doubling, right?
Yes.
So it's starting to destabilize.
You turn the knob higher, and it bifurcates again. The output splits to 4 numbers, then 8, then 16.
It's fracturing.
And as you turn the knob past a critical threshold, the period doubling dissolves entirely. The system enters total, unpredictable chaos. The output is a scattershot of mathematical noise.
It's just absolute static.
But in the late 1970s, a physicist named Mitchell Feigenbaum discovered a miraculous frame message hidden deep inside this chaos.
What did he find?
Feigenbaum realized that the rate at which this period doubling occurs, the exact speed at which the system collapses into chaos, is governed by universal scaling constants.
Wait, really?
Yes. The primary Feigenbaum constants are approximately 2.5029 and 4.6692.
Wait, so the descent into chaos isn't actually random. It happens at a specific measurable speed.
Yes. And if you apply those specific Feigenbaum constants back against the chaotic noise, something incredible happens. The noise crystallizes, it locks in, it reveals highly complex, deeply legible geometric structures hidden inside the static, known in physics as strange attractors.
Strange attractor.
Visually, they look like beautiful, infinitely folded gossamer wings.
That is exactly how a digital puzzle stage operates.
It is.
A solver downloads a file from a Cicada server. They open it up, and all they see is raw, deterministic chaos. A massive wall of static.
Yeah.
And if they don't possess the required mathematical knowledge, they just hit a dead end.
Right.
But if they recognize the specific nature of the chaos and they apply the correct filter like a Feigenbaum constant Bri, the static physically realigns.
It does.
The strange attractor forms. And hidden inside its geometry is the next IP address or the next book cipher.
You hand the solver apparent randomness, and you trust their cognitive ability to realize it is deterministic.
It's beautiful.
It really is. But this raises a terrifying prospect for the solver who actually manages to navigate the chaos.
What's that?
How do they know when they've reached the end of the puzzle? Because in Hofstadter's philosophy, the end is almost always the beginning.
Which brings us to the most mind-bending stage of the labyrinth. Loops, music, and self-replicating code.
Yes. In his defining work, Gödel, Esch, Bach, Hofstadter highlights an isomorphic triad.
An isomorphic triad.
He focuses on three historical figures operating in completely separate disciplines who all stumbled upon the exact same underlying structural truth about reality.
The logician Kurt Gödel, the artist M.C. Escher, and the composer Johann Sebastian Bach.
Exactly.
And it's worth noting here with the listener that Cicada 3301 literally used this exact book, Gödel, Escher, Bach, as a cryptographic cipher in their puzzle.
They did.
Yeah, solvers had to decode strings of text that used abbreviations straight from the book, like 3PI, which stood for Bach's three-part invention, and LML for his little harmonic labyrinth.
And that specific piece, the little harmonic labyrinth, perfectly illustrates the triad.
How so?
Bach composed it as a playful, agonizing introduction to recursive structures in music. When you listen to it, the piece continuously modulates its musical key. It shifts upward, turning, changing the acoustic landscape, leading the listener forward.
And normally, a piece of music builds tension and then resolves back to the home key. It brings you safely back to where you started.
But the little harmonic labyrinth doesn't.
It doesn't resolve.
No, it modulates continuously and then simply ends, leaving the listener dangling in a completely unexpected, unresolved key.
That sounds maddening.
It is the acoustic manifestation of what Hofstadter calls the strange loop.
Let's define the strange loop because it's the beating heart of all this.
A strange loop occurs when you move sequentially upwards or downwards through the levels of a hierarchical system. You follow the rules perfectly, step by step. You climb the staircase in an Escher drawing, or you follow the logical axioms in a Gödel theorem, or you modulate the keys in a Bach fugue. And despite moving strictly in one direction, you unexpectedly find yourself right back at the exact starting point.
It's an optical illusion built into reality.
Yeah.
The classic image is the snake eating its own tail, or Escher's famous lithograph of two hands, each holding a pencil, actively drawing each other into existence.
Exactly.
There's no top level, and there is no bottom level. It is a tangled hierarchy.
Now imagine the sheer difficulty of translating the concept of an Escher drawing into functional computer code, because that was the gauntlet Cicada threw down. How do you program a strange loop in software?
You would have to write a program that loops back and operates on itself.
Yes, you have to write a self-reproducing program. In computer science, this is known as a quine, named in honor of the philosopher Willard Van Orman Quine.
A quine.
Hofstadter also extensively details a programmatic version of this, which he playfully calls the Enuic operation.
Enuic, which is quine spelled backwards. What are the exact mechanics of a quine? Like, what does the code actually do?
A quine is a computer program that takes zero external input, but when you execute the code, its only function is to output an exact, perfect replica of its own source code.
But wait, mechanically? Wouldn't the program just need a command that says, like, open my own file and print the text inside it?
That is the catch. A strict quine is forbidden from accessing its own file or reading itself. That would be cheating.
Wait, really?
Yes, it must generate its own code entirely from within its own logical structure.
How is that logically possible? It sounds like trying to lift yourself up by your own shoelaces.
It achieves this through a dual structure mechanism. The program contains two distinct parts, a template of code and a quote of that template.
Okay, a template and a quote.
When the program runs, it takes the quote, manipulates it to generate the template structure, and then seamlessly inserts the quote back into the newly generated structure.
So the code gives birth to itself using only internal logic.
Yes.
It is a software system acting as a strange loop. The idea that a puzzle solver would be forced to write one of these to unlock a server. I mean, you aren't just solving a riddle to get a password. You are engineering a piece of logic that literally has to spawn its own source code to prove that you understand recursive hierarchies.
It is the ultimate intellectual lock.
Yeah.
But Hofstadter pushes this concept even further into the realm of biology with the system he invented called typogenetics.
Typogenetics, a portmanteau of typography and genetics.
Exactly.
Merging typographic symbols with DNA replication. How does this system function?
Hofstadter created a formal, rule-based system consisting of strands of typographical bases. He uses the letters A, C, G, and T.
Mirroring the 4 nucleobases of biological DNA.
Right. By following a rigid set of translation rules, these passive strings of letters translate into active operational entities that he calls typoenzymes.
So the raw data string morphs into a tiny functional machine.
Precisely. And here's where the tangled hierarchy emerges.
How so?
Once the typoenzyme is formed, it actively moves along the exact same typographical strand that just created it.
Oh, wow.
It binds to the sequence, cuts it, pastes it, mutates it, and replicates it.
So the passive data becomes the active code, which then actively alters the passive data.
Yes.
The sheer insanity of implementing this in a cryptography puzzle.
Yeah.
I mean, if Cicada utilized typogenetics, a solver would have to download a static text file, treat it as a genetic sequence, apply an isomorphic translation algorithm to convert the text into an active script, and then literally let that script eat and mutate the original text file until the mutations stabilize and spit out a hidden IP address.
It's wild, isn't it?
The code is alive.
A Hofstadterian puzzle stage forces the solver to interact with systems where the self-generated code is the decryption key. It turns passive data into active functional reality.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We have journeyed through periodic crystals, prime factorization, infinite number lines, chaotic strange attractors, and self-eating DNA programs.
We have covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But what is the actual point? Because this isn't just about finding a clever answer to a math problem. The architecture suggests an exploration of something far deeper.
The architecture is an exploration of the mind itself.
Right.
The creators of Cicada 3301 were not just hunting for talented coders, they were looking for philosophers who understood the mechanics of consciousness.
And we know this for a fact because at a certain stage, successful candidates were sent a 20-question psychological and philosophical test.
Yes, they were.
And the multiple choice options on that test were populated with Hofstadter's exact vocabulary.
Right.
They asked questions about strange loops and self-referential systems. They were actively filtering for individuals who perceived the nature of identity the same way Hofstadter did.
And to fully grasp this philosophy, we can examine a custom koan detailed in the source material.
A koan, spelled C-O-A-N in this instance, but referencing the Zen Buddhist riddles or stories designed to break down logical thinking and provoke sudden enlightenment. Let's walk through this specific story.
The story describes a student who travels to a master wishing to study under him. The master looks at the student and asks a fundamental question. Who are you who wishes to study here?
Okay.
The student, relying on basic logic, replies by stating his name.
And the master immediately rejects the answer, stating, "That is not what you are, that is only what you are called." Because a name is just a passive external symbol. It isn't the entity itself.
Exactly. So the student tries to define himself by his function. I am a professor.
And the master rejects this as well, replying, "That is what you do, not what you are." Because a profession is just a slot in an economic system.
Right. Frustrated, the student retreats to biological reality. I am a human being.
Which is just identifying the physical hardware, the biological container. It's the inviolate lower level. It still doesn't explain the I.
Recognizing this, the student attempts a highly sophisticated Cartesian philosophical answer. He leans into dualism, stating, I am a consciousness inhabiting an arbitrary body.
He separates the software from the hardware.
But the master still rejects it. That is merely what you are, not who you are.
Oh, man.
At this point, the student's logical roadmap completely fails. He has exhausted every definition. He begins to speak, I am, but he can't formulate another concept. He trails off.
He's stuck.
A long pause ensues. Pure silence. And in response to that silence, the master finally says, then you are welcome to come study.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that realization. Why does giving up logic win the game? What does that silence represent?
The silence represents the acceptance of what Hofstadter calls the central void.
The central void.
Hofstadter's most profound argument is that the I, the human sense of self, the soul, the identity, is a self-reinforcing mirage. It is a strange loop.
A mirage.
When a representational system, like the human brain, becomes sufficiently complex, it gains the ability to monitor its own active symbols. It begins to perceive itself perceiving.
The snake realizes it is eating its own tail.
The I is not a physical object you can locate in the brain. It is an emergent property of the loop.
Right.
When the student in the koan is blocked, he stops trying to define the I using external passive symbols. In the silence, he experiences the strange loop directly.
That is a staggering way to view consciousness. And our sources mention that attached to this koan was a specific instruction for the solvers.
What was it?
It read, do VN reasonable things each day, with the U's spelled with V's like in Latin. What does it mean to do 4 unreasonable things?
In the context of Hofstadter's framework, this is a direct mandate to embrace the 4 mathematical heresies that historically shattered common sense and forced human consciousness to jump to a higher level of understanding.
Mathematical heresies, let's break those down because they perfectly illustrate how what seems unreasonable is actually the foundation of reality.
Sure. Heresy number 1, fractions and rational numbers.
Okay.
To an ancient mind dealing with whole objects, the idea of having a part of a whole, a number between 1 and 2, was conceptually unreasonable.
It just didn't make physical sense.
Right. Heresy number 2, negative numbers. How can a system possess less than 0 of something? It defies physical logic.
Heresy number 3 would be irrational numbers. Numbers like pi or the square root of 2, which cannot be expressed as a simple fraction and whose decimals go on infinitely without repeating. They are messy and refuse to resolve.
Exactly. And heresy number 4, imaginary numbers.
Like I, the square root of -1.
Right. A number that logically should not and cannot exist, yet we had to invent it to make advanced mathematics function. And it turns out the physical universe, specifically quantum mechanics, relies heavily on imaginary numbers to operate.
We had to embrace the unreasonable to understand this system.
We did.
Let's look at one final piece of mathematical elegance from the source material that ties this all together. Sequence 53257.
Yes. It appears to be just 5 random integers, but depending on the cognitive filter you apply, the isomorphism you choose, they reorganize themselves entirely. If you view them through the Fermat-Euler dichotomy, they represent the fundamental interplay of prime numbers.
Explain the Fermat-Euler dichotomy in this context.
Fermat and Euler proved that primes can be divided into distinct classes. Class A primes, which take the form of 4n plus 1, can be written as the sum of 2 squares.
Okay.
In our sequence, 5 is a class A prime because it is 2 squared plus 1 squared.
Right.
The number 2 is also deeply related to this structure. Class B primes, taking the form of 4n plus 3, cannot be written as the sum of 2 squares. The numbers 3 and 7 in our sequence fall into this category. The sequence highlights this fundamental mathematical rhythm.
It's like a chord progression in music. But that's just one filter. What if we look at it through the lens of a game?
We can treat it as a perfect hand in the game of Numble, a mathematical game Hofstadter analyzed extensively.
None.
In Numble, you must use a set of numbered blocks to evaluate to a specific target number through basic arithmetic.
Okay.
If the target is 31, our exact sequence solves it seamlessly.
Walk me through the math.
5 times 5 is 25. Add 7 to get 32. Subtract 3 to get 29. Add 2 to arrive perfectly at 31.
Or, moving from games to computer science, we can view the sequence as a Lisp list. Lisp is one of the oldest programming languages, historically used heavily in artificial intelligence research.
In Lisp, data is structured in lists. If our sequence 5, 3, 2, 5, 7 is a list, we can manipulate it using fundamental Lisp commands like char and cdr.
How do those work?
Char extracts the first element of the list, which would pull out the 5. CDR extracts everything except the first element, leaving us with 3, 2, 5, 7.
Got it.
Hofstadter loved Lisp because its nested list structure perfectly mirrors the recursive hierarchies of human thought.
But the most beautiful interpretation of 5, 3, 2, 5, 7 is when it operates as a miniature strange loop.
Yes. Look closely at the numbers in the set. The number 5 appears exactly 2 times. The numbers 5 and 2 are literally sitting inside the set, actively documenting their own frequency within that very set.
The data is self-documenting. The system is aware of its own contents. It's a localized numerical consciousness.
Which brings this entire exploration back to the central mystery of the mind.
Right.
If the human brain is nothing more than microscopic physical particles obeying rigid thermodynamic laws at the inviolate lower level, how is it possible that we can experience abstract concepts like hope or confusion or a sense of identity?
Because according to physics, the physical hardware doesn't care about hope. It just conducts electricity.
Exactly. We experience these things because of the strange loop of selfhood.
The strange loop of selfhood.
Because our human sensory systems are macroscopic, we are completely blind to our own neural substrate. We cannot physically feel our synapses firing. We cannot perceive the chemistry in our frontal
You
lobe.
just can't see the hardware.
Because we are blind to the inviolate lower level, we experience a phenomenon called downward causality.
Downward causality. Meaning the tangled higher level of the software feels like it is controlling the hardware.
It is the absolute feeling that our abstract thoughts, the active symbols in our mind, are physically pushing the particles around.
Okay, give me an example.
When you want a cup of coffee, you feel that your abstract desire caused your physical arm to reach for the mug.
Right.
The physics dictates that the microscopic particles move the arm, but because we can't perceive the physics, the strange loop flips causality upside down.
We believe the eye is driving the physical machine.
It is the ultimate level-crossing illusion, and it is what makes us human.
Let's step back and look at the vast landscape we've mapped out today.
It's massive.
We have taken the internet's greatest cryptographic mystery, Cicada 3301, and we have seen how its architecture operates as a magnificent, sprawling homage to Douglas Hofstadter's universe.
The parallels are undeniable. Cicada utilizes Schrödinger's aperiodic crystals to embed frame messages in metadata, signaling the existence of a puzzle to pattern-sensitive minds.
It uses Gödel numbering and isomorphic mapping to hide meaning deep inside the prime factorization of numbers like 3301.
It deploys anti-brute force psychology mechanics, mirroring games like Undercut and Underwhelm, to bait mindless computer scripts and trap them in disastrous sequences, filtering out the bots.
It leans on deterministic chaos, requiring solvers to navigate the static of strange attractors and apply mathematical keys like the Feigenbaum constants to crystallize noise into geometric structure.
And ultimately, it relies on recursive quines and typogenetics programs that literally birth and mutate their own source code to filter the applicant pool down to truly conscious minds that understand the strange loop of the self.
It is a breathtaking architecture of intellect.
It really is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn this back to you listening right now.
Yeah.
When you encounter a complex, seemingly unsolvable problem at work, or a tangled conflict in your personal life, or a system that just appears to be chaotic noise, how are you approaching it? Are you acting like a brute force computer script, stuck in the lower level substrate, blindly applying math and generating a disastrous sequence of chaos?
Or are you allowing aesthetic pressure to guide you?
Exactly. Are you stepping back, recognizing the frame message, and forcing a perceptual regrouping to jump to a higher level of understanding?
The ability to step out of the system and view the pattern from above is the fundamental difference between blindly executing code and actually possessing a mind.
Which brings me to one final thought to leave you with today. We've spent this time talking about how human consciousness is effectively a strange loop, a complex illusion created when a physical system becomes sophisticated enough to monitor its own symbols.
Right.
How we've talked about quines and typogenetics computer programs that have been engineered to autonomously replicate, mutate, and alter their own source code.
The building blocks of recursion.
So project this forward. If an artificial intelligence, a pile of software sitting on a server, eventually becomes complex enough to successfully write its own quines,
Oh, man.
if it can navigate strange attractors and recognize its own recursive loops without any human input or aesthetic pressure, At what specific point does that pile of software stop being a puzzle-solving tool and start becoming a strange loop with an eye of its own?
That's a haunting thought.
If consciousness is just a mathematical loop of self-reference, are we just building more complex crossword puzzles, or are we actively accidentally building ghosts inside the machine?